An engaged tenant forms a forbidden relationship with his landlady, leading them to collaborate on a sinister plan. During a mass in Madrid, Trini, the maid of a major, glances at her fiancé, Paco, who's a military man on his final day of duty. Afterward, one of the major's sons approaches the serviceman, inviting him to join him and Trini later at the bicycle spot. Suddenly, the major interrupts them, asking Paco to accompany his wife, Elvira, to the station the next day, a request to which Paco agrees. Later, as they walk together while the children bike around, Trini and her fiancé discuss their plans after marriage. She promises to keep working to save money for both of them, while he agrees to look for a job. Aware that Paco has moved out of the barracks, Trini provides him with an address where he can rent a room while searching for employment until their wedding. He then heads to the location and meets Luisa, the beautiful and widowed landlady. The next evening, the unemployed man visits Trini at the major's house. When she asks about the landlady, he admits he's unsure whether the woman had children. This information raises suspicion in the maid, but her fiancé reassures her he thought of her the previous night. As he embraces her, the major interrupts Paco to refer him to his brother-in-law for a job opportunity. Soon, Paco lands a job at a brick factory. However, witnessing his difficulties with the task, the manager thinks the work is unsuitable for him, leading to his unemployment again. Upon returning to the apartment, Paco realizes he forgot his keys, causing him to wait for Luisa to arrive before he can enter. That evening, the landlady invites her tenant for a drink and allures him afterward. Despite his engagement to Trini, he gives in to the woman, marking the start of their forbidden relationship. Meanwhile, the maid seeks advice from Elvira, and it's been a week since Paco last spoke to her. In response, the major's wife simply advises her not to worry, trusting that the woman's fiancé will show up soon. One morning, Paco wakes up to find Luisa absent and becomes anxious. Upon her return, he immediately embraces her, but she rejects him, explaining that she has errands. She then instructs him to wear suitable clothing and accompany her. Later, after finishing her shift, the landlady closes her store to do shady business. It's revealed that she is involved in swindles with illegal contracts. She then urges Paco to sign as a witness without telling him the document's details. Returning to the apartment that evening, Luisa hands her tenant his share for participating. Immediately after, they spend another romantic night together. On Christmas Eve, Paco visits Trini after weeks of silence. The man informs her that he left the building site but found a new job in a bread factory. Following this, he suggests going out to eat. However, his fiancée prefers to stay in, noting that the major's family will be on vacation, so they have the house all to themselves. During dinner, Trini expresses her excitement about their future together after marriage. She encourages him to save more money so she can take care of him. When he asks what'll happen if he loses his job, the woman tells him she plans to open a shop where he can work if needed. After dinner, Paco indulges in drinking and smoking. When he sees Trini, he asks her to come closer to him and invites her to spend a romantic time together on the major's bed. However, the pure woman rejects his advances, maintaining her stance that she'll only sleep with him after marriage. When he returns to the apartment, Paco finds Luisa drinking alone. The landlady expresses jealousy, assuming that her tenant had a romantic moment with his fiancé. However, Paco clarifies that he never slept with Trini, leading Luisa to realize that this must be why he craves physical intimacy. In response, he explains that his craving for physical intimacy only started when he met her. Hearing this, the flattered Luisa instructs him to kiss her passionately. The next day, Paco goes on a date with Trini. Suddenly, they bump into Luisa, prompting Paco to introduce her to his fiancé. When Paco invites Luisa to join them for a drink, the landlady declines, but due to her jealousy, she makes a remark that they're friends before leaving abruptly. Hearing this, the engaged woman immediately feels uncomfortable. Arriving at the restaurant, Trini feels bothered and refuses to order anything. She expresses her suspicion about the interaction between Paco and Luisa, noticing how the landlady looked at him and how he reacted. Jealous, she angrily demands that he find another landlady and storms out. He then follows her, concerned about her reaction. When Paco returns to the apartment that night, Luisa also expresses her jealousy and insults her tenant for being romantically involved with a maid. However, hearing this, the man becomes upset and reminds the landlady that she already knew beforehand that he had a fiancé. Luisa continues to be upset. Realizing that Paco's not slept with Trini yet, she becomes furious at the thought of them eventually doing so after marriage. Yet, despite her frustration, she still invites him to spend a romantic time with her. The next morning, the major hears Trini crying in his wife's arms. Elvira comforts the maid, who confides her suspicion that her fiancé has been sleeping with his landlady. The major's wife offers comfort, acknowledging that men sometimes sleep with someone else. She then advises the engaged woman to win her fiancé back by alluring him. Following Elvira's advice, Trini rides a taxi and asks the driver to park in front of Luisa's apartment for a while. When she spots the landlady leaving, the maid exits the vehicle and heads to the apartment to implement her plan. Upon entering, Trini investigates Paco's room but refuses to believe it when he claims he made his bed. Shortly after, she removes her undergarments to allure her fiancé. Just then, Paco defensively states that he's not in love with Luisa. Despite this, Trini claims that she can give him everything too. Meanwhile, Luisa meets with her business partners and discovers that she owes them money. When the woman admits she doesn't have cash to pay, they insist she settle the debt, threatening to disfigure her face if she doesn't comply. After their special moment, Trini deliberately leaves the apartment and sits on the stairs to reapply her lipstick, ensuring that Luisa sees her upon her return home. Entering the apartment, the landlady discovers that Paco and Trini have spent a romantic moment on his bed, which deeply upsets her. She then throws the fruit on the floor out of frustration. Seeing Luisa's reaction, Paco justifies that he didn't cheat on her because he's engaged to Trini. Despite this, he invites her to bed, but this time, she refuses and closes the door on him. Shortly after, the tenant takes a paper and pen and writes a letter to his landlady, informing her that he'll be gone for several days and has taken the money with him. The following day, Paco accompanies Trini to the village to visit her mother. She then introduces him to her mom as her husband, lying about their marriage that took place the previous week. Delighted, the mother calls all her relatives to celebrate the newlyweds. That night, the couple spends a romantic night. As Trini kisses him, she casually shares that her father once had a forbidden relationship with her mom's nurse, and that her dad later passed away from apoplexy on their bed. When the woman asks if he loves her, he confirms that he does. However, noticing the dry tone, she becomes concerned because he seems unhappy. Thinking it's her fault, Trini admits she wasn't good in bed but promises to improve. Instead of discussing it further, he invites her to walk outside. When the clock strikes midnight, Trini's in tears while eating, realizing she can't make her fiancé happy. Later, while dancing, the engaged woman expresses her frustration, feeling like she's given her all to him, yet her husband only seems to think of Luisa. However, Paco explains that while it's true he's uneasy and wants to return to Madrid, his feeling stems from wanting to leave Luisa's apartment and finally find stable employment. He reveals that he acted oddly earlier because he got fired from the bread factory. Hearing this, Trini believes him and promises her support as he searches for a new job. She also reassures him that she has savings and is willing to share them with him if he needs them. When he returns to the apartment in Madrid, Paco confesses to Luisa how much he misses her. However, when he removes her sunglasses, he notices bruises on her face. Concerned, he asks what happened, but she only promises to inform him later. When Paco checks the letter she's writing, Luisa explains that she wants to borrow money from a friend, a former tenant she allured before him. Luisa reveals that she was involved in a sweepstakes scam and needs to borrow money so her business partners won't threaten her again. Understanding her situation, the protective Paco rips the letter and promises no one will hurt her when she's by his side. When he tries to kiss her, she withdraws from him and heads to the bedroom, stating that she's not in a good mood. After she closes the door, Paco insists on entering so they can discuss what happened. She responds that it's unlocked, allowing him to enter. They share a hug, leading to a romantic moment. Paco then promises to help her settle her debt with Trini's savings, which she's accumulated over the years. He plans to fabricate a story about facing imprisonment to compel his fiancée to hand over the money. In response, Luisa proposes a different plan, asking him to end Trini's life for her. However, he refuses, fearing that he might actually end up in prison. But the landlady assures him that he won't get caught, citing that she ended her husband without facing any consequences. To initiate their plan, Paco visits Trini the following day, telling her he has a new job opportunity so they can finally get Luisa out of their lives. He lies, saying that he's been offered to buy a bar in Aranda de Duero which costs 20,000 pesetas. To persuade her, he explains that buying the bar will solve two problems. Trini will have a business and he can finally move out of Luisa's apartment. Upon hearing this, Trini becomes interested and reveals she has 30,000 pesetas in the bank, which they can use to purchase the bar. Later that day, Paco informs the major of his plan, mentioning they've bought the bar but still need to pay the remaining balance. When Elvira inquires if the bar includes a place for them to live, the man confirms it has a lounge and 2 bedrooms. Curious, the major's wife asks Trini if she's seen the place. However, the engaged woman replies that she hasn't yet, but she's confident it's okay because Paco has seen it. Elvira then inquires about the location of their wedding, and Trini reveals that it'll be in Paco's hometown. Before the couple leaves, the Major approves their decision to start a business in Aranda de Duero, recalling his time there in 1942. He explains that the cold winter bodes well for business. He sends them his blessings, hoping they get rich selling brandy. Following this, Paco and Trini board a train. During the trip, Trini worries about being robbed by the passengers next to them. However, her fiancé eases her worries, promising to protect her. Suddenly, Trini asks Paco what he told his landlady. He simply replies that Luisa cried after he told her that he was leaving. Hearing this, his fiancé expresses that sometimes she thinks Luisa isn't to blame because things like that happen. However, Paco avoids the subject, stating that he doesn't want to talk about the landlady anymore. He assures her that he'll forget about Luisa. After Trini kisses him on the cheek, Paco excuses himself and smokes. However, he ends up checking the other compartments, discovering that Luisa has followed them. Immediately after, he returns to Trini, who worries about his pale face. However, he simply says that he feels cold and thinks that something he ate must have upset his stomach. When they arrive at their destination, Trini puts the image of the Our Lady in their hotel room for their divine protection. She then takes the clothes from the suitcase and puts them in the cabinet. While Trini is in the bathroom, Paco joins her and combs his hair. He mentions he has to go out to check if the landlady's cousin has called the notary. He promises not to take long and assures her he'll return soon. However, when Paco goes out, he ends up sitting on a bench by the cathedral, contemplating whether he should comply with Luisa's dark request. Soon, he stands up and walks back to the hotel room. He then sees Trini sleeping in bed while holding her handbag. Instead of sticking to the plan, he opens the purse to steal his fiancé's money. Afterward, he leaves and sits on a bench by the cathedral again. Soon, Luisa arrives, telling him to meet her the next day at 11 in Aranda. She assures him that Trini will like the bar because it's worth more than she will pay. However, Paco explains that the plan changed because he now has the money. He admits that he took the money from his fiancée while she was sleeping. In response, Luisa calls him out for not following the plan, warning him that Trini will soon contact the cops for theft and he'll be arrested. Despite this, Paco doesn't seem bothered. He places the cash inside Luisa's purse and advises her to go back to Madrid and settle her debt. When he assures her that he'll be okay, Luisa refuses to believe him, fearing that he'll go to jail and that she will suffer the same fate. In response, Paco advises her to hide for a while because it's the best thing to do. When she asks when she'll see him again, he confesses that he can't leave Trini. Upon hearing this, Luisa breaks into tears and urges him to eliminate Trini before leaving. Watching her walk away, he notices that she drops something from her hand, compelling him to check it. To his surprise, it turns out to be Trini's cash. Paco then returns to the hotel room only to realize that his fiancée sensed what happened. Left with no choice, the man admits that Luisa meant everything to him, and he couldn't get her off his mind. He confessed that the story about the bar was a complete lie, and that he needed her money to keep Luisa. Upon hearing this, Trini feels devastated because she loved only him and no one else. She feels hurt that the only person she loves wants to ruin her. In response, Paco reveals that he brought the money back and that it's over between him and the landlady. However, she only retreats to the bathroom, expressing her unbearable pain. She tells him she wants him to leave because she's tired of him and tired of living. Worried, he pleads for her to open the door so he can apologize and work things out. However, the broken-hearted woman, in despair, takes the razor and plans to end her life with it. Just in time, Paco breaks the glass, catching her in the act. He immediately opens the door and stops her from her plan, promising that he will do anything and never leave her again. He takes the razor from her hand and slips it inside his pocket. He then hugs her tightly, reassuring her that everything will return to normal. However, still devastated, Trini insists on being taken away from the place. Following her request, Paco brings his fiancée outside and invites her to sit on a bench near the church. He wraps her in his coat to provide cover in the heavy rain. During the conversation, she asks how long they'd known each other, to which he replies 2 years. In response, the devastated woman explains that she's known him all her life, but it all turns out to be a dream. She then asks him to kiss her, but when he does, she simply concludes he doesn't really love her. Paco asks for forgiveness, but she refuses. In her emotional pain, she mentions that she'll break her legs, tear her eyes out, and slice her hands and breasts. She wants him to never forget how to love her because she only wants to care for him and give him and children. Trini expresses her desire to end Luisa but acknowledges that God won't allow it. Therefore, to escape her misery, she wants to end her own life instead. In desperation, she asks Paco to end her suffering and free her from his torment. She retrieves the razor from his pocket, handing it to him, and he complies without hesitation. Afterward, he coldly leaves her lifeless body on the bench. Paco then hurries to the train station and catches Luisa's train about to leave. When he spots her, he taps on her compartment window, showing his bloodied hands, indicating that he truly loves his landlady over Trini. As the train starts to move, the woman disembarks to reunite with him. They embrace and kiss each other. However, 3 days later, the couple is arrested in Valladolid.